You can tell we're really sound experts here. Welcome to the Digital Music for New Users panel. This is the panel for people who are maybe thinking about going into digital music. You've heard about it, and you're making a decision about what to do and which way to go. My name is Chris Jensen. My co-panelist is Bill Harrison. I'm going to start off by doing sort of an overview and an intro. If you picked up my handout, it's a bunch of fine print and just sort of covers the whole area in kind of a summary. Yes, I can see you using your glasses there. So let me give you some brief history on my usage of digital music. I started when I first started calling in 1991, looking for a solution to my issues about using music as a woman caller. I had problems with the pitch of various records. They were too high or too low for me. So I was looking for a solution to that and went to found a pitch shifter, like a karaoke machine pitch shifter thing, and started carrying that with me to gigs. And that was big, so I started looking for another solution and went to mini discs. So I started using mini discs in about 1992 or 93. And then as the field has evolved, I transferred over into using a laptop. So I've been using a laptop for about 6 or 7 years, exclusively to call my dances. And I'm here to talk about the issues involved in using digital music and give you an overview of that. And then Bill is going to show you the process involved in recording music and transferring your music from vinyl to digital. Okay, first of all, digital music, you know, it's a little bit of a vague term, but basically it means taking the sound wave of music and turning it into bits that can then be used on a computer or in other digital music formats like CDs, mini discs, MP3 players. Okay, so we have some terminology that we need to just make sure that we're all on the same wavelength, so to speak. When I talk about a file on a computer, we talk about a WAV file in general on Windows, and that's a file that has bits of information representing time samples in your music. So what's happening when the computer is recording your music is that it is going through, and every 1/44,000th of a second, it is looking at that music and recording it in a sequence of bits. And a bit is a 1 or a 0. So it's digitizing the music, turning it into bits that can then be manipulated. For those of you who came in late, we ran out of handouts. But for you and for the purpose of the tape, I will tell you that I put up every handout, both mine and Bill's, on my website, which is at www.squares, that's SQUAREZ.com/digital music, all lowercase. So you can go there, and that'll have links to the various handouts. And I believe Bill has another solution for how to get his handouts. You want to do that?
Both handouts also will be on a CD that you can go to the home office as soon as this is over with and ask them for the CD. And if they don't have them here, they can mail them to you at home, and it'll have the write-ups all on the CD for you as well. So if you don't have the paper, it's okay. It'll be on a CD if you want to have the same thing that some of the people have paper-wise. All right. I would have printed more of them up, but it's kind of costly when you have the color. So yes. Okay. So I'm saying that if you don't have the handout, you can just ask the home office as soon as it's over with for a CD, and they'll have all the presentations on paper on the CD.
Okay, so let's go over some of the pros and cons of going digital. I assume you're here because you're interested and you're thinking about it pretty seriously, but these are the pros that I've found in going to having my music available digitally, either on a computer or mini disc, which I've done, or CDs, or MP3 players. One is that you can carry a lot more music. I can have every piece of music that I own on my laptop, and it's available all the time. So it's just there. I no longer have to go through and go, well, for this dance I want to do these records and decide what I'm going to carry, or carry 50 pounds of records. It's more convenient. Obviously, with a stack of records, it's maybe harder to find what I want, and I can have everything right here on the laptop. I should probably mention that I don't use this laptop for calling. This is my laptop that I use for other things, and I have a Windows laptop that I use for calling. Your records, your music doesn't wear out. When you have vinyl, the more you play it, it wears out. It gets scratchy. With digital music, once you've got it, it's there. It doesn't change. You can play it 10,000 times, and it's going to not wear out. Now, the record manufacturers may not like that, but I've bought the record originally, and I'd like to use it. And you have some additional controls over your music that you may not have with a turntable. That is, I can very easily change the tempo, the beats per minute of the music that I'm using without changing the pitch. And I can also change the pitch on the music that I'm using without changing the tempo. So that gives me some controls that I didn't have with vinyl. On the con side, there is the money investment. You're going to need additional equipment. There's the time investment. You're going to have to take the time, especially if you have a large library of vinyl, to transfer that vinyl over into a digital format. And there's just no way of getting around that time investment. And the additional complexity and the learning curve of learning to use the equipment. And there is a lot of that involved. All right, so what should you consider in deciding how you're going to go with your digital music? You have a lot of options, both in terms of how you obtain your music and how you use it at a dance. So things to think about it is, how easy is it to use at the dance? A computer, you have all kinds of flexibility, but you have to get used to the interface and you have to get used to using it at a dance. It's very easy to put a piece of vinyl, to put a record on a turntable. You're used to that. Put the needle down, you're going. With a computer, it's not that easy, and you have to boot it up and learn to use the software and the hardware. Another question, do you want to have tempo control at the dance? Do you need to be able to, on the fly, change the tempo? Do you need to loop your pattern music? Some equipment, it's very easy to loop, like with a laptop. With a CD, it's harder, and you don't have as much control, and it doesn't work as well, looping things. How are you going to handle your singing call lyrics? You know, when you have your records, they're just on the record. You just always have them. Once you go to a laptop, you have to consider how you're going to make that available, or with a mini disc, or with an MP3 player. And how are you going to keep your music organized? Do you work with other callers? You know, when I've been to events recently where every caller has their own laptop all lined up on the stage. And, you know, that's great for each one individually, but then when they start doing duets, it's like, what do you have over there? So think about that. How much money are you willing to spend? Some solutions are more expensive than others. How comfortable are you with the technology? It may be better to use something like a CD player rather than a laptop, because a CD player is more familiar, and that may work better for you at a dance. How easy is it to convert your music? We're going to talk about that. And what kind of an image? You know, there was a session earlier yesterday, I believe, about how we look. And you might think about the image of how you look either carrying in a turntable and these 45s that nobody's seen for 20 years versus walking in with your laptop or your iPod, even cooler. So that's something you might want to think about. It may influence your decision. All right. So what are your options? You could just start a slow transition. You could start buying the music that is currently available and more available on CDs. And then buy a portable CD player. And then you have your vinyl and you have your CDs. You plug your CD player into your Hilton turntable and you go that way. So some of your music is digital, some of it is on CD. Gradually, as you buy more new music, that music becomes, and more of the music is becoming available on CDs, you'll gradually transition over. And that's one solution. Another solution is to go with a mini disc, and the advantage of a mini disc is that you don't need to use a computer. Okay, you plug the mini disc into your sound source, and you can record your vinyl onto that, have your music on mini disc, and you won't have to learn the computer technology. The disadvantage of a mini disc is that you can't do the kind of sound manipulation things that we can do with a computer. And recording your music on a laptop or on a computer gives you a lot more flexibility in what you do with your music. So the other options are an MP3 player, but for that you really do need to have a computer. So using CDs and using a mini disc are the two options that you can use if you don't want to invest the time and learning curve in using a computer. Okay, if you decide that you are willing to use a computer and record your music onto a computer, then you have the question of what are you going to actually use at the dance. And your options there are the computer itself, a laptop, an MP3 player, and those are available. The most popular one right now is an iPod. And the advantage of an iPod or an MP3 player is that they're small, very portable, and they can carry a whole lot of music. If you get a disc-based one, if you get a flash card-based one or a just flash memory-based one, then they carry less music, but they're smaller and sturdier. So the disadvantage of an MP3 player is that you lose control. Most MP3 players do not do tempo adjustment, and they don't do pitch adjustment, and looping is not something that you can do easily. So that's a choice to make. Another alternative is a CD player. You can take the music off your computer, burn it to CDs, and carry CDs with you. And that's a nice transition. You still lose the flexibility of looping and, for most CD players, tempo control, although you can buy DJ CD players that give you both of those with certain disadvantages. The looping is usually on you have to set it up each time you play the CD. But you do get tempo control, and that is a reasonable solution. I personally have found that a laptop is the most flexible thing to use at a dance. It gives you all of your music, all of the time, complete control, good organization on the laptop itself, accessibility of lyrics, and all of that. So if you decide to go that way, then you get to decide what kind of software you're going to use at the dance, what software system you're going to use, how are you going to record your music to the laptop, and things like that. So on the handout, I've gone into more detail on all of these things, but I want to move on to talk about some other considerations in using digital music. One is that if you choose to go to digital music and you're using any of these pieces of equipment, you need to be prepared when you get up to call to be ready to go. Particularly if you're getting up to call one tip. I've been at conventions and things where people are getting up and you're fumbling with your cables and you're fumbling with plugging in your laptop and things like that. So I would really suggest thinking seriously when you go to digital. These are the steps that I take usually when I'm going to call a single tip or any tip. One, I come into the room before it's time to call my tip, and I look and see which Hilton it is, because there are a number of different Hilton models, and they all take different connectors. Okay, so this particular one, this is a 500, and it uses an RCA connector. Okay, older Hiltons, the 300 models, use a 1/4-inch plug. The Hilton 205 and the 150 use 1/8-inch plugs. What that means is I have learned, this one uses RCA. That's an 1/8-inch.
Yeah, but there are ones out there that are 8-inch.
I understand that, right. Bill pointed out that there are Hiltons that use 1/8-inch. They're 500s that use 1/8-inch. Question. Why don't you just give me your question and I'll repeat it for the tape? Somebody? No? Okay. All right. Wait, you don't have a mic.
If it holds up.
Cynthia Schrader from Wisconsin. When you're using the mini discs, can that, and you're using a mini disc recorder, I assume, then, to record your music, can you take that mini disc then and have it copied by the computer? Will it fit in?
It doesn't work. The channel is out on the... All right. Old mini discs, when I was using mini discs, no, you couldn't. New mini discs, yes, you can. You can record onto your mini disc and plug in using a USB cable and transfer the music from the mini discs to the computer. But older mini discs from the 90s, you can't do that.
Okay, my computer in the CD drawer has a slot that holds a smaller disc. Is that the mini disc? No.
She got a unanimous answer on that. That's a no. So the comment was that some Sony computers do take mini discs. I haven't seen one, but that could be true because Sony is the creator of the mini disc format. So some people worry about mini discs going out of style and you're no longer being able to get mini discs. I think that in the United States it's becoming a little harder, but they remain very popular in Japan, and you can continue to get mini discs here in the States. And the Sony has continued to improve mini disc players and recorders. They've gone more towards making them for professional people who need to record various events, in particular like interviews and things like that, but record music digitally. So they've become very useful for that, and for that they've made it easy to transfer music or sound from the mini disc to the computer with the new models. Okay, so we were talking about using digital music at a dance, and I was saying that you need to make sure that you have every connector ever known for connecting to a turntable, and you should also I think make sure that your equipment is charged up so you don't need to plug into power. Make sure that it is booted up if you're using a laptop, or that it's turned on and ready to go and queued up if you're using a CD player or a mini disc player or an MP3 player, so that you can go up to the stage, put your piece of equipment there. One cable is already connected to your equipment, plug into the computer, hit the on button, and go. Okay, and if you do that, that's almost as fast as putting a record on the turntable. So it's something to consider. It's something to consider in terms of ease of use of what you're deciding to use. One reason that I haven't chosen to use mini MP3 players as my primary musical source is that a lot of them aren't as easy to see and to control and to get to exactly where I want to get to as a laptop. I can use a laptop and easily find what I want, and you don't have that power with an MP3 player. With CDs or mini discs or MP3 players, you're going to want to have some kind of index of what you've got available so that you can find your music. So there are some organizational considerations. So we've talked about what options are available, and the options for playing music at a dance are MP3 players, CD players, mini discs, and a laptop. Looks like we're going to maybe get something fixed here. So, other things to consider in choosing to go to digital music. How are you going to back up your music? Okay, with vinyl, I know people who've lost all their vinyl records. They've had them stolen out of their cars, or they've left them in the hot sun and melted their vinyl. So there is that factor. But usually you may lose some of your records, but you won't lose everything that you own. If somebody took your laptop, would they get all of your music? Would you have to go through all the work of re-recording it? You don't want that to happen. So backup, backup, backup. Two issues about backup. One is backing up your music at home for your own purposes. The other is if you go to the dance and you drop your computer, what are you going to do? If you go to a dance, and I did see this happen, and you dump a whole bottle of Evian water on your computer, what are you going to do? So you need to think about what you take to the dance so that you are prepared to call if your laptop or whatever you're using crashes. All right. I carry a backup MP3 player, and I usually have some vinyl in my case. Okay, so something to think about. I think everybody's nodding as having had an experience. I have a question over there.
Yeah, I'll take it over.
Okay. Irvin Wyatt from Montrose, Colorado. You was talking about earlier about having the cords and everything. Shouldn't you also carry a booster? Because of the 75s and some of the 200s and even the older 300s do not carry enough impedance to run the music.
Check it.
Oh, I see. We're doing a splitter. Okay, so we can have two microphones. For the benefit of the people who are listening to this on their MP3 player,
Hello.
we are splitting the mic so we can have two mics. Yes, you should carry a booster because older Hiltons are not set up for digital input music, and they will not amplify enough. The signal coming out of your computer may be too low for that. All right, so my purpose was to give you an overview of things to consider as you choose whether or not to go digital and how to go digital. Obviously, I'm biased towards using a computer, but that's not the only way. There are other alternatives, and those other alternatives may be best for you. Using a CD player is simple. We're all used to using CDs now. And you can easily start using a CD player immediately. Just start buying your music on CDs. As you move along, you can then burn your music to CDs and go that way. Bill has a comment.
There you go. All right. Here, you can hold that. Thank you. I wanted to mention I just read a report, don't remember where I retrieved it from, but it's quite interesting that the CDs that you burn from your computer, be it your laptop, desktop, or whatever, I understand only have a shelf life about 4 to 5 years, depending on how you store them. Could be less, could be up to. So we're really getting complicated now, aren't we? Because a CD player is so easy to use. So in 4 or 5 years, does that mean that I may lose this music or whatever I put on there? It degrades, exactly. So in other words, you might have 100 songs on there, and all of a sudden you go to play number 51, and it's no longer, part of it's not there. This is possible, something to think about. Just thought I'd throw that out there for you. And you're like, okay, I'm glad you did.
And what that means, that also would have an impact on how you back up your music. Because I'm backing up my music to CDs. Well, I have to think about that and have to think about re-backing up periodically or finding another format. But any format, there are going to be issues. I could back up to hard drives, but hard drives have a lifespan, and they can also crash and burn. I wanted to talk about one other thing, and that is we were talking about using alternatives to laptops, and I wanted to talk about how you can work with mini discs, CDs, and MP3 players to get some of the control that you get with a laptop. I talked about tempo control. Most mini discs, CDs, or MP3 players do not have tempo control. You sometimes see MP3 players advertised as having it, but what I found when I actually tried to get into the details was that, yeah, they do. They'll do plus or minus 10% or plus or minus 25%, which is just not fine enough grained for what we need. You know, we need 1, 2, 3% changes. And so, and also the other factor with that is that the interface is not easy enough to be able to easily change your tempo on the fly to do what you need to do. So what I did when I was using mini discs was I would record for songs that I knew I wanted to use in different situations, I would just record at different tempos. I would change it on the turntable back in the olden days and have a slow tempo and a fast tempo. The other thing you can do is when you're recording your music, keep track of what tempo you're recording at, and then you can just make lists of, well, these are slow ones that I can use when the conditions warrant using slower tempos, and these are fast ones that I can use when the conditions are such that a faster tempo would be good. Ways to handle looping. What I would do, I think, if I were using an MP3 player and an MP3 player or mini discs or CDs, is I would create long tracks for patter. And you can do that on a computer, or I've talked with somebody the other day who actually does it on a mini disc. And because on mini disc recorders, you can copy and paste more or less pieces of music so that they would create the longer loop, create the longer piece of music, and then just have those on your MP3 player or CDs. Also, more and more patter records, and Tom, when he's less busy, might be willing to speak to that. More and more people are releasing patter music on CDs with extended tracks, so that you can buy the CDs that have 10 or 12-minute patter music already on them. So that's another solution. And then once you've done that, you can just go to the dance and you'll have control over your music. You'll have control over how long your patter goes, and you have control over the tempo because of your knowledge of what the music was recorded at. So those are possible solutions to using other things, other digital music players other than a laptop. All right, when Tom is done with this, I'd like to get him to comment on how digital music is being used in the, how he's using digital music and what the future is in terms of producing digital music and your ability to buy digital music. I haven't talked about buying MP3s, which you can do from Palomino Records. And more of the music is being released on both vinyl, CDs, and MP3s. My personal choice is to buy them on CDs. And the reason for that, despite the fact that MP3s have some real advantages like next day delivery, and they're already there, ready to go onto your laptop, my personal choice is CDs because MP3, and I've usually gone into this earlier on this, but MP3 is a condensed format, and it's a lossy condensed format, meaning that to create the MP3, they're throwing away some of the sounds in the original music. Now, the algorithms that are used to do that are good enough that most of us can't hear the difference. Okay, they're throwing away sounds that the human ear doesn't perceive. So that's fine, but I know that they're throwing away the sound, and so my preference is to buy the CDs with the uncompressed sound, and then when I record, and then I can make the MP3, and I know I'm throwing away sound, but I have the original with the full sound. So that's my choice. The other reason that I choose to do that is that I do some musical alterations. That is, I do pitch shifting, and I do it before I make the MP3 usually. So I prefer to do the pitch shifting on the full uncompressed music. If I bought the MP3, I would have to change it back into a WAV file, do the pitch shifting, and then recompress it. So I've gone through 2 lossy compressions on that MP3, and I would prefer to avoid that. However, the convenience of just buying an MP3, and particularly if you don't need to do any manipulation, is really great. So Tom, can you talk about what you're doing musically?
What was the question?
My question to you, I have 2 questions for Tom. Tom was originally, as far as I knew, he was on this panel, and then I got here and he wasn't. So I've asked him, he agreed, he said he would be here. So I have 2 questions. One is, how do you see the square dance music industry going in terms of digital music? And how are your digital music sales, just in general? And my other question is, and maybe you should go into this after Bill has talked, is about how you go about cleaning up old music for resale.
Okay. First of all, the MP3 library is growing. Obviously, if you go to Hanhurst and look at the website, we are exclusive as far as the Square Dance MP3 downloads for the majority of the labels. It's growing. The library is getting bigger and bigger, so sales is growing. It's still less than 3% of the market. Okay. Vinyl is about 80 to 85% of the market, and CDs is in there somewhere. We have found about 50% of the people that are going to MP3 format are still buying the vinyl first. Chris likes to buy the CD, but at least half of the people like to buy the vinyl and convert it themselves. I don't understand why, but they do. Chris is right. The CD is much easier to work with. We're giving you the high key, the low key tracks, everything to play with that you possibly want to play with. But that's your choice. But as far as the library, it is growing. Since we took over the business about 2 years ago, we've got about 98% of the producers to allow us to produce vinyl, MP3, and CD formats, all for the song at the same time. There's still about 2 or 3 producers out there that want to wait a year before they introduce the other formats. That's their choice. But we kind of felt that, hey, if we're going to introduce the song, let's put the 3 formats out there, let you choose what you want to choose, and move on. And that's worked out pretty good. We're going back as time permits in the libraries of other labels and picking up the songs and converting to MP3 and CD both. We're not trying to do one format. We're going to put both out there at the same time. As of this month, for example, Sting and Snow has their entire library available on MP3. By the end of year 2009, we'll have it all on CD. We're not flooding the market. We're only doing a couple of songs at a time, and the rest of the labels agree with that. We don't want to flood the tape service with 14 new MP3s of old music. We want to make sure the new music's out there as long as new music's going to be made available to us. That's another issue. But anyway, as far as digital sound, it is growing. Quality-wise, we're sending stuff out there at 128. You can make it higher. That's your choice. It's going to take up more space in your computer. Keep that in mind. I'm sure Chris covered that a little bit. You can get higher quality. It just takes up more space. And, of course, most of us never thought we'd fill up a gig, let alone 80 gig of space like we are today. So keep that in mind. Your second, I'll deal with the cleanup later, but I can't remember the. Yeah, okay. The cleanup I'll deal with after he shows you what he's going to do to it. And I'll save this one to move around with.
Okay, so what Tom mentioned in terms of the quality of the MP3s, we talked about MP3 was a compressed format. We talked about it being a lossy format. You have a choice when you convert your WAV files after you've recorded your music to MP3. You have a choice as to the quality of the MP3 in terms of the bit rate that you use. So if you do it at 128, that's generally pretty good. You can do it at 192, and that's considered near CD quality. But it's your choice because the more bits that you use the higher bit rate that you use to represent the music, the more space it takes. So if you are feeling like you're tight for space, you may want to choose a lower bit rate. Also, consider that the sound systems that we use are not hi-fi quality sound systems. The speakers that we use are not stereo home audio speakers. And the dancing population are not listening to the music with an ear towards the quality, the frequency range of the music. They want to hear the color and they want the music and they enjoy good music. But I'm not sure that a higher bit rate of your MP3s is going to make an incredible amount of difference in what comes out of those speakers. And having said that, and giving you a lot to think about in terms of how you choose to convert your music to digital and what equipment you choose to use, I'm going to turn it over to Bill, who is going to go through the process of taking your vinyl and digitizing it on your computer, and anything else that he'd like to talk about. Don.
Don Beck, Massachusetts. Chris, is there any possibility that you could give us an example? And I know we're using a calling system and speakers that are who knows what, but an example of a WAV file and the same music on different bit rates in MP3 so we can, people that don't know how degrading it is or degraded it is to hear the difference or see if we can hear the difference?
I think I could do it. I can work on that while Bill is talking, and then I've got a WAV file of something that I was going to use in the next session to demonstrate removing vocals, and so I have a WAV file of that, and I can convert it to an MP3, and we can listen to it. So here's Bill Harrison. Bill's been calling for a lot of years, and he's been using digital music for a lot of years.
Thank you. Okay. The process that I'm going to show you is not in detail because we have another session after this, forget 3 o'clock or whatever the case may be. That particular session is going to be a more in-depth process of what I'm going to be showing you now. Some of the things that I have here, I'm going to try and stay true to however I formatted it because of the people that aren't here to be able to visually see this, would be able to follow along, hopefully, if they buy the tape. Once again, I'd like to mention that if you don't have a copy of the handout, then you can get that from the home office on a CD, and it'll be the same Word document that some of us have if they want to share or look, whatever. The document that you have in hand is exactly what we're going to be looking at up here. No different. Not one word different. Okay? Very good. So this is we did this for the new users. And it says digital sound for beginning users. And we talk about here, some of the one may wonder why laptop, which Chris has also talked about. What are the advantages? And how do I get started? These are some of the questions that we're going to address, which have been already, but we're going to also do it again here. Do you mind sitting down? No, I like to stand up. Okay? Yeah, how's that? I can't read it. Okay, so, and anyway, so we're going to end up doing some of those questions within this process of this presentation. Okay? One of the questions is why use a laptop for music. There really is not a perfect answer for that one. Chris, once again, has touched on that. A laptop CD player, MP3 player, mini CD player, all will play music. All these devices have plenty of storage room, and that's the key. That's what we're doing, having a place to store our music. What are the advantages of digital music? The software today is studio quality. There's all different kinds of programs out there. Cool Edit, Audacity, Gold Wave. You really want to get into some big money? Pro Tools, things like that. Totally up to you. Okay. What the software can do is make changes to the instrumentation and the vocals in a matter of seconds. So within the software, you can vary the waveform. You can stretch it to do process of tempo change, things like that. Pitch change, all this can be done within the software. We have players today that have been developed by different square dance callers and so forth that you can do that on the fly. So instead of doing that process through the waveform, you can just record it at its normal speed, whatever the turntable is. We don't care, because on the fly within a player, you can hit a button to slow it down or speed it up. You can hit a button to change the pitch, and that will remember what you've done. So the next time you come back to that song, it'll be whatever change you did at that moment. The next time you come back, it'll be the same pitch that you had chosen before, the same speed. If you don't like it, you can change it again. Okay? We have the same tools through the software to make our record noise-free. That's the big key. We can enhance the bass and the treble quality. We can do many, many things. You can do the same when recording your 45s using the software to clean up the music. Make the record sound like it was brand new again. And that's the fascinating thing for me. It's just incredible. The storage of the music is important when using a laptop or an MP3. We have thousands of songs that can be stored. I mean, thousands. More than one person can carry at your dance in a record case. So if we have, for example, 10 record cases, that's what the computer is, a storage of those 10 record cases. That's what it can be done. So it's a fascinating process to carry that many pieces of music at your fingertips. We mentioned that just a second ago, your laptop is your record case. You can categorize all of your music any way you wish to. You can have them where you might want to say, these are my patter records, these are my singing call, these are my holiday songs, these are my theme. Because each folder, again, when you look in the computer, each folder is your record case that you normally would carry. So if you had a couple of them at home, be it small, and you took that, and that would be your theme dance, all of this still can be utilized through the process of a laptop computer. Okay? Records that you use over and over again become worn, and many of records that we have can never be replaced. Okay? A number of years ago, I did this session. I'm more advanced because I didn't have a whole PowerPoint thing. I learned this. My kids taught me. Anyhow, and this is a true story. I have, when I got involved in digital music itself, and I started recording it, I was just fascinated how I could take a record that I called 35 years ago. I have never used it probably 10 years. Went back and listened to that and just heard this, and all of a sudden I was able to take that away. And it was like 35 years ago when I first bought it. I felt that's how I was. When I went ahead and played it through the computer, I was like, wow, brand new. My family decided they wanted an extra dog. While I was away, even though I said no, the extra dog showed up at the house. In my office, I had a stack of records, approximately about 100. And the dog was a puppy, and someone left the entrance open. And when I went in there next day or whatever, I had 100 records that had been christened. Seriously. I don't know if you've ever dealt with that before. It's not a pretty sight. Because the oil, you just can't get it off the vinyl. It takes time. I sat them on the porch for about 2 years because I didn't have a way to, really do the cleanup process and all. When I learned that, I thought, So I finally was brave enough to go get the 100 records. And I did. I had to wash them and so forth like that. And then I just, one right after the next, plopped them on the turntable and recorded them in. I saved about 85 that and they sound like they're brand new. The cue sheets and what have you obviously were pretty much destroyed. But that's just an example of what I was able to do. I look at things when I change, is it a value to me? And yes, it is a value to me. Okay, digital music is pretty cool. All right. Okay. We say that it's easy to use. The computer software can be these great pieces of music back to their near original quality. Sorry. How does one get started? First, you must find out what is needed to record music from your turntable to a laptop or a desktop. How many actually use a desktop to record their music into? Anybody? Yeah, okay. How many of you actually use your laptop? Okay, great. Okay, cool. There is an excellent CD that's actually sold by Palomino on digital recording. The CD, about 70 pages or so of document with screen cuts, much like you're going to see in this presentation. Alrighty. That's the CD that I use to actually get started. Okay. Also, another way of learning how to do this is talk to friends that you know that are doing this process. Ask questions. Don't be shy. You have to determine what kind of turntable you're going to be using. We understand that 200s and 300s are not the best quality of units to use. The Hilton 201, 501, and 205 are the best of the Hilton series. I actually would recommend a professional turntable, a stereo that you have at home. That is, to me, the best. Okay. Yeah.
And if you're going to go out and buy a turntable to do this, you might consider looking at USB turntables. There are turntables that will connect directly to your computer through the USB port and make this process a little bit easier.
When you do your recording, you want to connect into the turntable. You want to take that and go into your computer. You want to go to a line in. You can record through the mic, but it's not the best, in all honesty. It'll be satisfactory, but a line in is exactly what you're going to need. The turntable, there's one that's kind of popular right now that Chris mentioned about USB, and it's called ION, I-O-N. And basically what it is, it's a stereo turntable And within the bottom of it is built in a similar box of Creative Labs. You could buy these separate, which will do the same identical thing. If you have a stereo turntable at home, to plug into that, a USB cord goes into your computer, you have the line in now. If you have the USB turntable, it's all built in and still has the cable that goes into the computer to your USB. Okay? With the Ion turntable, I believe the software is Audacity. Okay? Audacity is also a free download. Okay? Most all desktops have a line in. The desktop is not the big worry. It's going to have a line in. It's the laptop, if you're recording into your laptop, that you have to be concerned. I definitely want a line into my laptop. If I don't have one, I need to find a way. Okay? We talked about this. There's the Ion turntable we just mentioned. You'll need the software, such as Cool Edit 2000, Adobe Audition, Gold Wave, Audacity. Some of these are shareware, which means that you can download them. They don't cost you anything. Some of the others cost. Some are all varied. Could be $100, $200, $300, whatever your preference happens to be. I think most people go for the FREE. Okay? Once you have the hardware hooked up, you have the software in place. Now we're going to begin doing our recording process. Today we're going to be using the examples out of Cool Edit 2000 because that's what I happen to use. Okay? We're going to get started here. One of the things you have to do is set the software parameters. Once these are set in the software, you don't have to go back and do this every time. It's permanent. Once you set them, you're done. Simple as that. The settings that were here, right here, are equal to a CD quality. Okay? I do have one there, it's clicked that says stereo. We don't need that. We would probably click the mono, because that's what our records are. Okay? The stereo setting, as you saw before, are going to create a file 2 times as large as the mono. The mono is quite adequate because our records are vinyl and produced in mono. Using the mono will show a single waveform. Okay? Using the stereo will show 2 waveforms. In this particular software, as in most software, you're going to have the upper part as your toolbar. And it has all the options that you will use depending on how sophisticated the software happens to be. The Audacity, I think it is, has the same kind of stuff that I'm going to be using here, even more so in the next session. It has the same type of stuff, pretty equal to Cool Edit 2000. Alrighty? Now, Cool Edit 2000 was a purchase. It was not a free download. They're no longer available, yes. I was fortunate to get it before it went to Adobe Audition, I think it was, and they put a whole bunch more things in there, and then I believe when I purchased this, it was $75, and the Audition now is something like, I'm roughly saying $290, something like that, okay? And the Audacity that you can do a free download has the same options that we're going to be using in the next section, okay? Very good. This is what the waveform looks like. Once we have transferred the music from the vinyl, it pops through, it goes in, and through the program, as it's playing, you're seeing this develop. And when it's completed, and you say stop, this is what you have. Okay? Once you pop it in there, you want to immediately name the file, because you don't want to lose it if something happened. Notice here the way I have it named is, in this case, it was Last Farewell, and it's ORG. This is the way I name mine. ORG means it's original. Okay. When I complete the process of cleaning up, I will do a save as out of the program itself, and I will just take off the ORG. So now it will just say lastfarewell.wav. I keep the original because I don't want to have to go back and do this again. In this case, obviously, when I complete the process, I will have two WAV files. I will have Last Farewell ORG, Last Farewell. Okay. Then individually, however you want to deal with your organization, which one you want to keep or whatever. The one that's named Last Farewell is our working, completed WAV. That's the one we want to take and make into an MP3. Okay. I want to now take time to show you what the waveform actually shows us. Okay. I can't remember what page we're on, and I surely can't read all that. Okay. At the beginning of the music sample here, hey, it works. Cool. See right there? This part here. All of this right here is the noise that we're dealing with from the record. It's the needle hitting the record, all right, which is the big spike that you see here. And the rest of this thickest line here is actual noise before the music starts. That is all the way through the music. Believe me. The music is covering up most of it, but it is there. And that's what you want to take out to make a clean process. We call these at the very beginning the pops and the hiss of the record. Needle, it's all coming from the needle. That's what's taking place. It's on the record, being worn, used an awful lot of times, whatever the case may be. The pops and hiss on the vinyl, and the more the vinyl is used, the more enhanced these become. The pops and hiss actually are throughout the whole body of the music, what we just mentioned. When the music is playing, you may hear some of the hiss, possibly some of the pops. Okay. The waveform that was just recorded into the computer has all of the sound components of the record that was being recorded from. Every last component is there. With a vinyl record, you cannot take out the hiss, pops, or crackle sounds. But by making it digital, we can. This is what it all looks like at the very beginning. I've just enhanced it a little bit. So this area right in here is all the noise. This about right here, I would say, would be where the needle hit the record to start. And this probably here was probably a high pop. Okay? And this rest of this process here is all through the body of that waveform. Okay. We do? Okay, we have a little bit of a time crunch. Okay. So, like, how many minutes do we have? None. Okay. Well, I only have about 8 pages to go. I'm only kidding. I guess my presentation is over with. What do you think? Huh? Okay.
I think you should stick around and listen to Bill do the rest of this the next hour. We're here for digital music for experienced users, which you now all are because you've sat through the first part. So I want to apologize to Bill for not leaving him enough time, and thank you all for coming.